Today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of very cool knife options from Brous Blades. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today we're taking a look at a few knives coming from Brous Blades. You may have seen me open this already opened package in a recent mail time video. If you want to check that out, I will leave a link for it right up here in the corner. Now I have 6 different blades sitting here with me. 2 of them are on the lower budget side. And then I have 4 different blades that were part of a limited run. Each of the blades, there were 500 of them made, and I have 1 of each. I might as well start off by reading this letter from Jason. Hey, I hope you're doing well. We just wanted to take a moment to let you know how much we appreciate all you have done and continue to do. We want to thank you for your continued support and friendship. I actually met Jason and some of the other people from Brous Blades when I was down in Houston, Texas. They're a great bunch of people, and I've actually not owned a Brous Blades before then, so I'm excited to have these now. To show further appreciation, we are thrilled to send you this gift. Inside you will find 4 of our American-made knife models, as well as 2 of our newly released import line models. We hope you enjoy these knives and truly feel appreciated. Thank you again for your continued support, friendship, and overall badassness. Take care, Jason. So Jason, I said this before and I will say it again, thank you very much for sending these knives out. Now let's get into some of them and see what we're working with here. So I find this whole array of knives pretty interesting because it covers a large spectrum. There are some small knives, there are some large knives, there are very intricate designs, and then there's very plain and simple designs as well. All of these knives are built using relatively the same construction with D2 blade steel and either stainless steel or G10 for the handle materials. They are all folding knives and most of them are running on the Brous Blades bearing system. And I'm not sure if the cheaper models have this, but definitely the higher end models are all coming with their ceramic detent. The first one we're going to take a look at is probably the most popular in all of the Brous Blade lines. This is an import version of their Silent Soldier flipper. So here's the Silent Soldier. It is a relatively small pocketable design. I believe the handles are made out of some kind of injection molded polymer. It's got a pretty cool looking hexagonal texturing on there. The pocket clip looks like it will carry pretty deep into the pocket, and then of course in the back here you have a flipper to pull the blade out. I am personally a pretty big fan of this design. It is a very utility driven blade. It has a pretty cool acid stone wash type finish on there on the Wharncliffe blade. And although this knife is pretty small, it does feel pretty good in the hand. There's some fairly aggressive jimping on the back here. Not only is it cut across like normal blades, but it is cut down the middle as well, giving you just a little bit more texturing on there. You could use this knife with your thumb running on top of the jimping there. You could technically put your finger through this hole and choke up on it a little bit. There's also some jimping on the little back spacer here, and it is of course a liner lock design, as most of these knives are. The lockup on it does seem to be pretty good. It is a fairly early lockup, and it's also a pretty chunky little blade. It has some cool grinds all throughout it. If I were to EDC one of these knives, this would definitely be high on my list. The detent on this seems to be very good. I cannot shake this blade open, but at the same time, I can flip it open very easily. I could definitely see myself using this knife to open boxes and letters and basically just things that I typically carry an EDC knife for. The pocket clip is reversible, but I will leave it in the right hand tip up carry because that's typically how I carry my knives. Now also in this budget friendly import line, they sent another blade, and this is an import version of the very cool styled Vendetta. Just like the Silent Soldier, I believe this is some sort of injection molded polymer handle. It has a fairly thin pocket clip. I don't believe this will carry as low as the Silent Soldier does. This one is also a flipper, and check out this blade. This is just an all black design. It has a nice big belly in there. There of course is jimping across the top of the handles and then a little bit onto the blade as well. The liner lock down here in the finger choil is textured as well, so not only does that give you a nice purchase, but it also lets you close the knife fairly easy as well. For being a budget, relatively cheap knife, this thing is also very, very smooth. It requires little to no effort to flip this thing out until it locks. And then to close it up, I will just simply drop the blade after the detent, and it closes up very nice. Detent is also pretty strong as well. Now this blade is a little bit too big for my taste when it comes to an EDC knife, but it is definitely a very cool piece. It flips open very fast and it is very smooth on the close up as well. The centering looks pretty good and the lockup looks very good as well. So that is it for the 2 cheaper options. If you guys want to find out pricing on these, I will of course leave a link to their website in the description down below. I typically do give pricing out in videos, but for the most part, things fluctuate all the time. And depending on where you pick these knives up, you may be able to find them at different prices. Now moving on to the American made line, like I said, these are one of 500, and all of them are packaged in these plastic protective cases, which is a nice touch. This one is one that I showed in the previous video, and it is the American version of the Vendetta. Now what makes this one a little bit more high quality is definitely the attention to detail. Typically when knives are made overseas, they are mass produced, and I believe that there is a little bit more that goes into these American made ones. So the handle material here is a nice G10. It isn't very textured, it is more of a nice smooth finish, and it does feel very good. That is the same on both sides. Here you will see a pocket clip that is a little bit different than the import model. You can definitely tell that this knife is a lot more quality than the previous one. On the back side of the flipper here, you can see the production number, and this happens to be number 499 out of 500. Apply a little pressure to that flipper and it reveals this awesome looking blade. Now this is a pretty wicked looking design, but at the same time I really like the way that it flows. The grinds from the blade into the handle material and the way that it is kind of contoured. I'm really a fan of the way this knife looks, however it is a little bit big, so I don't think it's something that I would actually use very often. On the top there is some jimping in both the blade and the handle material. It is not super aggressive, and overall the knife feels pretty damn ergonomic in my hand. There is a very fine point on the acid stonewash blade. That might be a little bit fragile if you put it to some hard use, but at the same time the blade is relatively thick, so I think that is definitely usable, but I wouldn't want to pry anything with that. Take a look at the liner lock in there and notice how early that lockup is. That is a good sign that this is a pretty quality blade. Again, like all of these, this is a D2 tool steel blade, so this really could be used fairly hard. The thing about these knives though is that they are so intricately designed that I really wouldn't want to put them to hard use. But with the materials G10 and D2 blade, they are definitely users. The ball bearing pivot in here makes the opening very, very smooth. It snaps open with authority. Since I haven't played with this a whole lot yet, this one doesn't close quite as smooth as the other one, but I'm sure once I flip this thing some more, maybe put a little bit of oil in there, it should loosen up, and then I think it will be feeling very nice. All of these American made blades are also coming with a certificate of authenticity. If you want to take a closer look at what that says, go ahead and pause the video. On the back side you get information about the handle material, the blade steel, the number, and then also a free lifetime sharpening with these Brous blades. And also with this card comes a little torque screw, so you can remove the pocket clip or take it apart if you really want to. They do say on the card here though that they do not recommend taking the knife apart at any time, and if there is an issue you can contact Jason personally with his personal email on there. So that is some pretty rad customer service that they have going on. Next up is probably my least favorite out of this whole line, simply because of the color choices. I'm a fairly boring person. I like gray and black and black and black. So this is one of their more unique folders, and this one is named the Hardwire. Now if you're into the color blue, you may really enjoy this knife. I for one would like this blade a lot more if it was all black G10, but as you can see here it is kind of layered G10 with blue underneath and then this almost CNC type pattern on the top here in black. The black on this is definitely more textured than the Vendetta was. And then on the reverse side it has a fairly similar pocket clip, a nice thin design, and I feel like that would fit pretty well in your pocket. The numbering on this one is a little bit harder to see, but this is actually number 105 out of the 500 run. Now I'll press down on that flipper to reveal a super wicked blade. I'm actually a very big fan of the overall blade design on this. The only thing I really don't like about it is the blue on the handle. But again, you have some very cool grinds in here. It's a very slim blade, but there still is some nice thickness to it. You have this nice recessed design cutout in here as well. And again, a knife like this is still made out of D2, so it is a user. But for myself personally, the knife is a little bit too big and it's almost designed too nicely that I don't want to use and abuse this thing. This is a more smooth design. There really is no jimping on the back, on the handles, or the back of the blade. It is a very big blade, so it does take up most of my hand, and then a lot of the handle kind of hangs off the end there. And although the blade is very long, it still remains fairly slim as well, so if you wanted to, I believe that you could carry this in your pocket all day. The lockup on here is a little bit too hard to show on camera, but it is also very early, just like the last one. Maybe if I zoom in here, you can sort of see the liner lock and its lockup in there. Again, a very cool design for a blade, but the colors, that's just not my thing. With this super long blade though, the way this thing flips out feels really cool. Definitely unlike any other blade that I've owned in the past. Alright, now we're going from one of the most unique designs out of the bunch down to probably the most boring. Now Jason from Brous Blades actually went on the record saying that when he designed this knife, he sat down and just thought, what is the most boring knife that I could possibly come up with? And he came up with this, the Spectre. Now, believe it or not, this is actually more my style. This is basically like a gentleman's folder. If you've never heard that term before, basically a gentleman's knife is something that is small, kind of hides itself just by its design alone. And it can be carried in most environments, whether you work in an office or maybe you're going to a wedding and you need something to kind of blend in with a suit that you're wearing. The whole design of this blade goes relatively unnoticed. It is a small, sleek design, but it also comes with that American-made quality, so it is a very quality knife. On the lockup side, you will see that this differs a little bit because this is actually a frame lock design. It comes with this sort of stone wash type finish. It's not quite as dark as the acid wash of the blades. It has a nice slim pocket clip, and this thing feels very tough compared to some of the other ones. I don't think that that will fly out of your pocket very easily. Underneath the pivot here, you will also notice that there is an over travel stop. A lot of times when you see over travel stops like this, they are kind of big and positioned down here, like on the Hinderer knives. I really like the way that they integrated this into the design, keeping it as sleek and minimal as possible. On the opposite side of the knife, it is just some simple G10, very smooth, not very textured at all. And it also is contoured, so it should feel pretty good in the hand. Again, on the back side of the flipper, this is number 388 out of 500. There is a little bit of jimping on the back side of that flipper, and it opens up to reveal a pretty simple, boring blade. Now, boring is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm definitely a big fan of this blade shape. There's a little bit of a belly here, so it should cut fairly well, and the blade is almost looking black on video, but it is actually that very dark acid stonewash type finish. On the top, there is a little bit of subtle jimping on the back of the blade, and it is a fairly small knife, but it does feel very good in my hand as well. The lockup on this is not quite as early as it is on the liner locks, but that's sort of expected with a frame lock. Here you can sort of get an idea of what it's looking like on the inside there. And then the over travel stop there is for when you are closing this blade, you're not gonna pull that frame over too far. And then of course the blade closes. D10 feels pretty good. And next to the Silent Soldier, this is probably another knife that I would be okay with carrying for an everyday carry knife. I appreciate small blades like this because they are very easy to carry, but there's also a lot of attention to detail. I could definitely see myself carrying this and actually using it in the future. So now we are going from the most boring blade to the most intricate, wild, crazy looking blade. I saved this one for last. So this final knife right here is actually a collaboration design between Brous Blades and another knife designer. I'm not really familiar with a lot of knife designers, but his name is Elijah Isham. And if his knife designs look anything like this, I should really do some more research on some other blades that he offers. So this blade right here is known as the Echelon. This is just a super wicked, crazy looking design. It is still made out of the same materials. It is a D2 blade with G10 scales. The scales are actually skeletonized, so you can see the stainless steel liners underneath here. It is the same on the reverse side, and there is a custom pocket clip here just to go along with all of the crazy intricate designs of this knife. On the back of the flipper here, you can see that this is number 286 out of the 500 limited run, and I will use that flipper to reveal the equally as wicked looking blade. Just like the handle scales, the blade is actually skeletonized, so you can put your finger right through there. It has the same type of finish that you found on the other blades, and there are some pretty crazy grinds in this one as well. On the back side of the blade, they have this jimping, if you want to call it that. It is very widely spaced out, and I believe that that is more to the design rather than the functionality of the actual knife. And with the way this knife looks, you may think that it is not very ergonomic, but it actually does feel very good in my hand. It's a pretty cool feeling because the way the blade sits kind of low in relation to the handle. When you get a good grip on this thing, it is almost right in line with your knuckles. With all of the materials and everything, this blade is definitely still a user, but again, I probably would not use this blade. This design is not really my thing, but it is very cool, almost a conversation starter or statement piece. And I wouldn't want to go using and abusing this thing, so I will hopefully leave it just how it is. The lockup on this one is kind of hard to see because it is nested down inside of those handle scales. But again, this one is very smooth. The only thing that's kind of weird about this one is the position of the flipper. When you're holding this thing in your hand, the flipper is like straight up and down. So instead of pushing down on the flat part of a flipper like you normally would, you almost press it into the knife like a button. And once you get used to that, this thing does come out very quickly. It's just a super wicked biomechanical type of design, as Jason calls it. And while this isn't for me, maybe this is something that you're into. Maybe you like super wicked, crazy looking knives. You could definitely cut stuff with this. They definitely put nice edges on these blades. I also thought that a design like this would give you a lot of hot spots in your hand when you grip it really tight. And although things look kind of sharp and jagged, it is contoured a little bit right where your fingers lay on the knife. I feel like this is a type of knife that you would see in some kind of like futuristic movie or like Alien vs Predator, things like that. So again, not really for me, but it is definitely a very cool knife, conversation starter. And like I said, Brous Blades offers a wide variety of knives. They have some very boring ones, and then they have things like the Echelon. Chances are they offer something that you might be into, so like I said, I will leave a link to their website in the description down below. So that's it for the small showcase of all of these knives. Thank you again to Jason for sending all of these out for me to check out. If you guys have any questions on these blades, I'm definitely not a knife expert, but if you have anything you want to know, feel free to leave those questions in the comments down below. If you like this video and you want to see some more knife content in the future, slap a like on it so I know to make more. And if you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week. That's going to be all for today. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.